And we are live.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me again for CatSpan and Music Mentors Among Us. I'm really excited tonight to have some dear friends and colleagues with me. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me again for CatSpan and Music who have been with me for a long while. And here's what's really interesting about this wonderful technical moment. I love the fact that I can hear myself. So somebody at our wonderful technical moment, I'm going to turn it. Interesting about this wonderful technical moment. There it goes. Somebody
we're caught in a feedback vortex.
Isn't it wonderful? So what we're going to do, which I love, this is a great moment because everybody who's watching can learn from this. So everybody who's with us tonight, Steve and John, go ahead and mute out your. It's just like if you were on the radio and they say, "Hey, I need you to turn your radio down so we don't have feedback." That's exactly what's happening. So. We all get to fly by the seat of our pants now. So, so if you're in the chat room, Tom, our wonderful video and photography guy, is going to see what you say this evening. So let me start again, you guys. I'm so thrilled that you're here at CatSpan, where I bring a lot of my friends on to share their world, and they're my colleagues as well. So it's not just my friends and colleagues I've worked with for years. And so tonight, the music industry is a very changing and volatile space right now. And so I've brought on some dear friends of mine, Steve Altman. Of course, I can't believe I said Almond. I've known Steve for 20 years. I can't believe I said that. John Lindley, sorry about that. And Tom Schaefer. Please forgive me if I'm hearing myself back. So that can be the lesson for all of us. Technical moments. We'll be able to talk about that later, right, Tom?
It's one of those crazy things.
One of those moments. So I have known the longest here, Steve Altman, and we've known each other for over 20 years, and he has been in every part of the industry. I have known, from being a drummer, honestly, drummer to merchandise to management, everything in between. Tom Schaefer, known as Miami Tom, has been in photography and videography for years, and I am blessed to know him because he has about 15 years of my life on video. I say I'm blessed, maybe that's scary. And John, we know him as John KT. I've met him in the industry here in Nashville for the independent artists, and I'm really honored that you're here, John, to talk about your world and your understanding of production as well. So I want to start off with Steve. Why don't you give everybody kind of a little bit about your world?
The nickel tour of my life.
Yes, the nickel tour.
I'm coming up on 4 decades in the industry. I started in the 80s as a touring drummer. I played with a bunch of national acts, very lucky, go around the world. Bands like Scandal with Patti Smythe and Marshall Crenshaw. In the 90s, I started segueing over to the business side of the business. I worked with Iron Maiden. I started a backline and tour production company here in Miami, which eventually grew to an office in Atlanta and an office in Nashville. And by the end of the decade, I was acquired by SIR, Studio Instrument Rentals. So at that point, I segued again after I finished with them. I did artist development for Sony, coordinated a lot of their high-profile events. Moved into artist management, worked with John Cicada, partnered with DeStefans on that. A little bit of publishing, and I'm just reading my notes here. And then I eventually, moved into merchandising, branding, and marketing, which is kind of still where I am now. So, so I've kind of spanned the globe a little bit, and I'm very thankful for all of the opportunities I've had.
Yeah, and so much in between. There's a lot. There's a lot in the grooves. I think people are going to learn a lot from you tonight too. John KT, tell us a little bit about you, hon.
A little bit about me. So, I was a carpenter for 25 years and then lost my job. So I reinvented myself. I've been a musician all my life, really. And so I just wanted to take it to the next step. So I went back to school about 12 years ago, became an audio engineer. Went back, got my bachelor's in music production, started my production company. And then in 2018, I got my master's degree in entertainment business, where I studied a lot of the contracts, copyright, and distribution and licensing. Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. That
Important
made
stuff.
my life work to help people transition into the next phase.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Yeah.
And Miami Tom, I always call you Miami Tom, but Tom Schaefer, tell us a little bit about your world.
It's a pretty varied background, I guess. I've had mechanical background, and then I got into photography. I was mentored by a studio photographer for a short amount of time. I learned a lot in that little bit of time, and then I got wound up getting in the computer business because it actually paid better. I had started a family, and so it paid better. So I got in the computer business, but never really lost my love of photography. And then about 2005, I kind of reignited that side of myself and started shooting around Miami. And it was really a fascinating time, but I was also coupling that with I was doing website development, that kind of stuff, and some IT work. So I work on the server side and I work on the graphic side. So I've kind of a twisted, weird career working both sides of it. And then really started exploring videography as soon as it became kind of a possibility. I started shooting live musicians and wound up in Nashville shooting musicians up there for a while. Came back to Florida, and I've really been exploring live video at outside events, that kind of stuff, shooting musicians, that kind of thing. I really love shooting bands. There's something that happens when people, they get that synergy together at that moment that I feel almost obligated to record. Why isn't anybody taping this? So there's a side of it that I really enjoy because I know that this is a moment that's passing. And if it's a good band or it's a good event, I really want to capture it. So it's part of who I am. I'm a visual, I guess we'd call a visual artist in that sense. I love capturing that moment as best I can. So that's what I've been doing.
And amen to that there. And so we have this full circle of people that I'm really thrilled to talk to, because for independent artists, all of these people matter to your world. And while we are not what we'll call experts at anything, we are successful at what we do. Not everybody knows about my forefront to my career. And so I'll round it off by expressing why this is important to me and a little bit about my world. I started in musical theater. So as a young girl, I was always in musical theater, and then went to university, Boston University School for the Arts, for classical drama. Then I took a little bit of a segue from my given road, because music was always that, and went into bodybuilding, and also went into finish up a degree in broadcast journalism. And then went to work for Fox in Miami. So I have an interesting background, because after all of that and through all of that, if we're going to go through the fiber of it, I was writing music and then came out with my album and recorded it out in Los Angeles. I've had these guys in my life helping me and driving me in different directions and being very, very honest with me during a lot of this process. And I'm really blessed. And I'm bringing them here tonight because I learned something early on in my career, which was, if you want to be successful, you really are, you're working on your image, your package. What is your full you? Do you walk, talk, and act the same way? I learned that in classical theater. I also learned something valuable, and I think it was from John Lipsky, which was one of my first acting coaches in Boston. He said, be the person that people want to work with. You may not always agree, but be the person they want to ask back. And so that always sat in the back of my mind. But probably more valuable than anything was the package. When you walk in the room, do you look like you sound? When you walked, are you powerful? Does your hair, all of it, does it all come into full circle? And that is a saleable package, something that you can sell. And so that is one of the conversations I want to have right off the top for independent artists who are watching. What is your genre? Who are you? And when we go through this process, I actually want to pop to you first, Steve, and talk about Lauren, because Lauren she was new to the game, or she wasn't new. Her father had been in it, but she was new to and incredibly talented. I want you to tell the audience just a little bit about the time when you managed her, because this is very, very valuable.
Sure. Well, it's Lauren Harris. Lauren Harris is the daughter of Steve Harris, the bass player, leader of Iron Maiden. After my time working with them, Steve and I always stayed very friendly. And, I was in personal management at that time. And Lauren was a great singer. She didn't, beautiful girl, had all of the, like you mentioned, had the package, had the whole thing going for her, except Lauren didn't have, at the time, didn't have any live experience. Lauren was living in her family compound outside of London, and I'd first gone over to see her, and she was doing the American version or equivalent of karaoke. It was her and another girl that were singing the track, and that's acceptable there. That's a real paying gig there. But very no stage presence, very wooden. So my business partner and Tommy McWilliams, Tommy and I, we worked out with her and her dad and Maiden's management company, and we put together a little thing where we developed Lauren. We basically taught Lauren her craft. We taught Lauren how to front a band. She never actually sang in front of live musicians. So we put together a band around her. Incidentally, the guitar player that we hired for that band now is Richie Faulkner from Judas Priest.
Oh, wild.
So, but we put a band around her of people, and our philosophy is we put guys around her that were seasoned guys. It was a hard rock thing, the look, everything, but she really rose to the occasion. She learned well. Lauren, obviously because of her dad's connections, her dad's a gigantic rock star. Lauren jumped right into the fire. We got her ready, wrote some great songs with and around her, and Lauren's first album did very well. Toured a bit with her dad's band, Motley Crue, Def Leppard. The list goes on and on. Did very well, but same thing. Had the package. We helped her figure it out. We helped her be the best person that she could be.
So you would say it's grooming that.
Absolutely. Look, Lauren's a fantastic singer. Lauren, obviously, cosmetically is a beautiful woman.
Yes.
Lauren, the parts that Lauren didn't have that she had inside of her, we just helped bring out. That was a great thing. And she caught fire mostly in Europe, not really, unfortunately, not over here as much, but caught fire, and it went crazy. And, we went everywhere. Europe, Japan, here, we did festivals in Dubai. We did everything, and she always rose to the occasion because I believe that she had a great foundation. She put a lot of work into it, like I'm sure everybody watching this does. She learned her craft, and quite honestly, she had us and other industry professionals helping her. The advantages, the privileges, and she'll tell you that herself, of being her dad's daughter. But that's the story of Lauren. Now Lauren's still doing it. She's doing film and she's acting now. But tremendous talent.
Yeah, I remember some of the earlier videos that you showed me. Really, I'm just going to say it as I rarely curse on video, but kick-ass. She really was kick-ass. She really just did awesome. So you guys,
anybody that's out there that's curious, go to YouTube and search Lauren Harris and put in Your Turn. That's probably more popular videos and songs that we had going at the time. But
and you were talking about honing your craft. I know John and I were talking actually a couple of weeks ago about how valuable it is to hone your craft and actually do the work.
Yeah, and to touch on something that Steve just said too, and that is that you nurtured her and brought something out of her that she didn't realize she had inside of her, right? So to front
Absolutely.
the band, she was doing the karaoke, whatever, and that's, I think that, indie artists have to realize there are so many different facets to this industry. Which part do you want to fit in? And it's like, if you want to be happy, study happiness, right? If you want to be successful, study success. It's like, if you want to be a singer, study how to be a singer. If you want to be a songwriter, study how to be a songwriter. If you want to be a music producer, study how to be a music producer. So I think that what Steve was saying there was crucial, that not everybody has the ability to do every single role in the industry.
Yes.
It's knowing what you're good at, or what you want to do. It's not even being good at it. It's like learning the next step to get good at what you want to do.
Absolutely.
And and here's a valuable part: taking the criticism when it comes along.
Yes.
Or maybe
Tough skin.
what's a better way of putting it rather than criticism?
It's reminiscent to me of going from good to great. So you may have great talent, but unless it's developed, there's a lot of good talent that goes to waste because it isn't properly developed. And that's why it's important to fund arts and fund the arts and entertainment of these, because really our culture really does enjoy what people do, and we enjoy good entertainment. That's a huge part of our culture, but it also rounds us out as individuals, and it rounds out society. There's a side of it that it brings to us that I don't think people fully realize, as far as all that goes. So I think that's important.
I also think.
Sorry. I think
I want to jump in with you, John, real quick, because there's something you said before, and I want everybody to chime in on it. Artists who are not triple threats, who do not have the full circle, who could get caught up in the criticism. And I wonder if you guys can maybe throw a little bit out there. Steve has seen on many occasions, Steve has given me some great advice. And rather than going, oh, that's great advice, this is maybe 20 years ago, I thought, yeah, why aren't you seeing what I see? And then, and I see a lot of artists do the same thing.
Yeah.
Listen to the people who are out there coming at you from a direction of the business side and or the artist side, and don't see it so much as criticism. Maybe step back and go, oh, this person is really looking. Chime in on that, because I think that holds people back from a really great career.
I like to use analogies a lot, and what you just said is kind of like somebody wanting to put an addition on their house, right? And so they spend all day Saturday putting this wall together, and the building inspector comes around and says, that's not up to code. You need to do it this way. Right. So it's the same thing. It's like people of it doesn't matter if it's music. It doesn't matter what industry it's in. There's always going to be somebody that has a little bit more knowledge than you, and they don't have to share that knowledge with you. So it's not so much criticism as it is building you up.
Yeah.
You just take it as criticism, and that's a defeatist attitude.
Yes.
I think you have to be comfortable in what you're trying to achieve to be able to accept the criticism, constructive criticism. I mean, there's a way of doing it. You've got to have soft skills in this industry.
Sure.
Some people.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna tag that and say it's kind of like everybody. I have an image in mind of what I look like, what I project myself as, but I can't be the person looking at me across the room objectively because I can't get outside of myself.
Right.
Now we can do video. I can be on a TV performance. We can be on a talk show like this. You watch the playback later and say, okay, that's what I look like. But it's still not seeing yourself the way somebody else would see you. And
Right.
as far as critique or help or whatever name you want to put on it, I think that's a valuable thing because, like I said, even if you were the top person in the industry and knew everything, you still can't see yourself the way somebody else.
It's awareness.
In this case, would
Correct.
see you. Awareness, exactly.
And I think a good self-deprecating mockery of yourself from time to time is healthy. I make fun of myself doing these because I have my own show on Thursday nights, and so I call myself the captain of because I kept using that. And I was so I started joking about it to myself, and actually it's trimmed it down. I've stopped saying that as much. So I think we have to kind of mock ourselves a little bit in this business. If you're going to be on camera or whatever, you're going to screw up. We screwed up tonight getting with the echo.
Yeah.
We can't be Fox or NBC. We are freelancers. We are putting together these streams on our own, and the production that goes into it, there's a lot of effort that goes into this. So I think you need to dig in, though. You've got to be a little bit of a do-it-yourselfer. You got to grab the technology and say, okay, I'm going to figure this out somehow, some way, or I'm going to find people that can help me do it, because it's very important now, as we have seen with these lockdowns, for whatever reason. A lot of musicians started taking advantage of the streaming capabilities. Now, this is something I've been harping about before all of this shutdown started, before all this sequestering started. I knew the importance of video, getting good video of your band or your performance. Get your mom, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your significant, your next door neighbors, have somebody show up with a cell phone, because these phones now, you can get 1080p or 4K video from these little phones. And you can even get little tripods and stands, and you can literally get a multi-camera shoot now with smartphones of your performance. If you're doing a band, or if you're in a place where you really don't want people running around with cameras, but tabletop phones. But so it's important, I think, to get good video, get photography, utilize the technology, make fun of yourself a little bit. You can critique yourself with those videos and say, you know what, we were a little off right there. And it's no longer a rumor. Now you've got evidence. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why video and photography is so important. Actually, that was the part that Tom and I had. Tom came up to Nashville when I came up to Nashville, and we had the conversation about how many people had not jumped into this videography moment. They didn't have people showing up and doing video of their shows. It was just go and do your thing and glad it happened and ciao ciao for now. It can't be that, because if you want to market, and this is the next topic I want to chat about.
Wait, Kat, if you don't mind me getting in on that for a second.
Yeah.
Think about the investment. Now the markets, I think, isn't it the same in Nashville as many places? You have to pay to play. Indeed. There's an investment it takes to get you there. What's the old joke that a musician puts a $3,000 instrument into a $500 car to show up at a $100 gig?
Right.
Yes, that is indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's an incredible amount of investment that you're putting out for oftentimes not getting paid very much. The least you should do is get some video, get some pictures, something. Take something back with you. Yeah.
And so I want to go into managing your own self, but I also want to jump a thought into that, or add a thought into that. Please, all artists, do not expect people to show up for free, and please don't ask them to. If you are not, honestly, if you are the artist, yes, there are many times when you're going to show up to fulfill your dream, and just to bring it forward. But you cannot ask your musicians, photographers, and videographers to continuously show up for free. If you can't pay them scale, or you can't pay them as much as they're worth, but you want to give them something, please give them something, because that's very, very valuable and important. And as you go forward, you too will make something. But I just want to throw that in there. But management. So as we come into this moment, there are a lot of independent artists who are thinking, I want a manager, I want a record label, I wanted this, because I'm not sure what's going on in everybody's head, but they think that that's going to make it better. Management. I'm going to throw it to you, Steve.
Okay.
When it comes to an independent artist, when are you at a place where you should get management? Because I have a lot of friends I know who think I need it now. And is there a specific, or maybe there's not a place?
I think people, and rightfully so, are a little caught up in the old school, the way it used to be. Just like Tom was talking about how affordable it is to do quality video and production now. We all have the ability, and a new artist has the ability to make a name for themselves online. Okay. It's not just based around live gigs and getting a record deal and everything. So many artists that are online that have tremendous followings because they put the time into social media. I explain it to people like this. You have a little circle. You have to, even if you played around town, wherever your town is all the time, you have to increase the diameter of your circle. So now how do you do that? You shop for new fans online. You put your stuff out there, whether it's your recordings or it's your video or it's your interaction. It used to be that artists would hide behind the record companies and everything was an official statement or official release. People want proximity to you. They want to feel connected. You need to make them feel connected. And just like we're talking to people, if this were for rock stars, so to speak, and I hate that term, if this were, you would be reaching out right now if we had callers calling in, or that there's no gatekeepers anymore like there used to be. Okay. And I really think that the artist, okay, granted, the ability to make money through publishing and things like that are reduced now because the advent of YouTube and, you kind of have to give your music away to let people see you as an artist. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, okay, because every band has the ability to be like a cottage industry, whether it's merchandise and touring, and they're reinventing themselves. We've got this horrible sci-fi movie we're living through right now with the COVID virus, but the fact of it is it makes companies, industry, and bands and artists more enterprising. How do I get to people online? Because I go do a gig in the club, or I can't be nobody's out in public. So I think your audience is there. You have to find them. It's free for them. It's free for you to develop yourself. Where 20 years ago, that just would not be possible. We wouldn't have the technology to do what we're doing 20 years ago, like Tom had said before, unless we were NBC or CNN or whoever it was with the big budget to make this happen. So I think artists really have to look inside themselves. How can I reach out to people? Is it through video? Is it audio? Is it through merchandise? Is it through being accessible? Telling them what my songs are about, where my headspace is. If it's a concept thing, what's the concept, and be truthful. You can't manufacture stuff because people smell through that right away. So, I think it's a very interesting world now, and I'll wrap this up, that people have more of the power and the tools at their fingertips without having to write that check.
That's what I was about to ask you about. Can you please express to people, especially the indies right now watching, what does it cost? Give me an idea. What we can do now as indies, if we put the time in, and John and I were talking about this the other day, putting the work in.
Yes.
Actually putting the work in. If we did it versus if we paid a record label or somebody else to do it, if they have a better reach, that's one thing, but today's world is different. What did they used to have to give up?
Well,
does anybody want to throw?
Go ahead, John.
Well, I think Steve touched on a very valid point right there. We went right in the middle of that when he said that why would you want to write a check to somebody to do exactly what you can do for free? And I think that's key where the indies are concerned. And I think what you've got out there now in the world of social media is people are like, hey, here's an opportunity for me. I can charge you to put you on my label. But the first thing you need to do is research. You don't want to just go to the first online, person and go, okay, here's my label. I'm going to sign with you. And next thing you know, they're doing the same thing that you were just doing, which was sharing your post. And their 5 followers were, 2 of them was liking it and 1 of them was themselves. Or, or you're signing with a promoter and, and the promoter's like got nobody. Okay, if a promoter come to me and said, I want to work with you, I would go to their website. If they didn't have a website, that'd be it. I'd be done.
Yeah, you'd be done.
I wouldn't go to their Facebook page and go, oh, they shared this post, they shared that post. I'm going to go sign with them, pay them $100 a month. That's not what I would do. Same with a manager. You know, a manager, oh, I want to manage your career. Well, who have you managed and what have you done for them to warrant what I'm going to do for you, you know, you're going to do for me? So I think what Steve said was that was the key point. Why would you pay somebody to do the thing that you can do for yourself? We have the tools right in our fingertips.
Yeah, and let me add to that as well. You know, I think people are always like, man, if I could always get a record deal, and like you had said, John, a first label that pops up. The fact of the matter is, and even major artists are not reselling their record deals. Fact of the matter is, look, record companies are not selling physical product as much anymore. Okay, we all know, we've all heard stories, whether you're connected or not, how much the streaming services pay a diminished royalty. There's not a lot of money to be made in what they call physical product, the CD itself, the LP. Okay, so the truth of it is there's not a lot a record company can do for you, especially as a younger artist. And quite honestly, and it actually is fair to them. They generally want you to sign what they call a 360 deal, which means that in the past they never made money off of your concert appearances. Your touring revenue was always your own. Okay, your merchandise deals, whether it was having a deal with a merchandise company or selling your own stuff. Now, because they're not making any money off of album, CD, LP sales, they want a piece of those things, which makes it 360. It's like a pizza pie. They want their percentage of everything. And quite honestly, if if that works for you, then that's fine. Every deal is different. Every experience, every circumstance is different. But the fact of the matter is there's a lot of bands that are getting a van and go that they're living off of their merchandise sales. They're living off of that money that the club owner is paying them and hoping that it stretches to the next gig and the next gig and the next gig. Especially at that level, the label's going to come in where they've already spent money to record you, photograph you, video you, do all the things that they're going to want their percentage of that. Now, they might put it off because you're not making enough money right now to sustain yourself, and they've got to let you keep it in. But any record deal is you keep owing the till. So the more money they put in, you're going to eventually owe it to them on the back end. So a record deal is not really for everybody. If you think about a big band right now, what's to stop them from doing, pick the name of a band, your favorite artist.
Blackberry Smoke.
Pick whatever the name is. What's to stop them from you going to aerosmith.com, paying them for the download, buying the merchandise from them, buying everything from them? Okay, I mean, and I'm not picking up, Aerosmith, there's obviously many reasons why they use outside companies, but any band on the spectrum from smallest to biggest, the fact of the matter is a lot of record companies, and I know I'll probably get flack for saying this, they're not necessarily needed the way they used to before. Again, they used to be the gatekeepers. They would decide who the public would see. It's not really entirely like that anymore. So again, take your power, work on it, woodshed it, get it out there, make it the best it can be, and then just hammer it with people.
It's leverage. This is all about leveraging.
Prisoners, take no prisoners. Make everybody your fan, your Facebook, friend people, Instagram, Twitter, whatever your mode is.
We have a question from the chat room that goes along with this, Steve. Pardon me for interrupting you. It says, how do younger bands with a following, good look, great sound, push the social media and create avenues for shows and tours to get on the radar, for success as a whole, minus looking for label coverage? But how do they do that?
Again, drawing attention to themselves online. If they know they want to tour, they want to break out of their hometown area and they want to tour in a certain area, start friending those people. the clubs, the venues in those areas. Start posting on their sites, their Facebook, their, you know, whatever it is, whatever their media is. It's exposure. Be your own press agent. Get out there. Make people in those areas aware of you. Again, you're going to expand your circle. Okay, circle of awareness. People that like you. People that would like you. If you know that there's other bands that are big in that area that you're alike, that those fans might like you, infiltrate their fan base. Grab them. Take no prisoners. You know,
Yes.
the worst thing that's
Let's
going to happen
leverage.
is going to say,
It
hey,
ties
you're
in.
really good, but you're not my cup of tea. You know?
What Steve said just tied into what Tom said in the earlier segment, which is don't just go onto say local bar in Baltimore because we want to go out there and say, hey, we're a band of 4 people and we've got a great following here in, say, Tennessee, right? Don't do that. Go take a video, put it up there, tag all your friends, and then let your followers show that people that they're going to go there.
We have a meritorious, the social media quote economy is meritorious.
Yes.
So it's as if we've been handed a television studio in our own home, and the merit is, okay, you've just been handed a TV show. Really? Am I any good? Well, we're going to find out.
Right.
The option's up to you. We've got the advertisers, we've got the ads that we'll place at the bottom of your video. We've given you the sponsors. All you have to do is show up and turn on the camera. And we made the cameras cheap too. So we are without excuse as far as if for a band. There was one young gal that's how she got on The Voice. She was on YouTube killing it.
Yes.
With her songs every night. This girl was on there constantly. So that's the meritorious nature, which means if you're out there, you can't win if you don't play. So if the meritorious nature is, well, if you think you're good, well, let's just go see how good you are. Turn the camera on and start playing. Start talking. Get your face out there. Get the feedback where people say you suck. Laugh about it. Learn to feel a little bit of that. Get better. And get comfortable with the camera. I was horrible doing any of this kind of stuff when I first started. It's embarrassing, but I wasn't going to stop. I was going to say, I'm going to find a way to get rid of those rough edges as we were talking about and learn to be yourself, be authentic. I remember the first days of shooting video when video really started with the digital cameras, and some of the musicians I'd shoot for, they were thankful for the video, but the audio was really rough and they didn't want to hurt my feelings and say that really sucked, but the audio just wasn't good enough. Now, for just pennies, you can get quality audio components. You can get, for the price you pay for pedals and flangers and everything else, you can get some good devices to plug into your computer to really enhance the sound and get good sound and get a decent camera. Don't try to find the cheapest camera, get a decent camera and start learning how that stuff works. Get used to it. Get on Facebook, get on YouTube. Let the merit of the social media economy award you. You start building fans. Now you start learning what it means to be a little bit of a performer up close. Share your life a little bit, give your songs. I think that we have such an amazing amount of leverage now that it's almost silly not to.
So that goes into the next point. We've done a broad brushstroke industry-wise, but I'd like to bring it back to the talent. So of all of these little places that we can go to, all of you are very knowledgeable in bringing it to the fans. Most important part is the unique element of who you are. When you're in studio, that's one thing. And John, I want you to talk about that. Songwriting, the element of your authenticity. Janis Joplin is one of my idols, and she was extraordinary on every element. So it didn't matter whether she was makeupless and sweating, and didn't matter what her weight was. She was so authentic that every crowd member was willing to do whatever for her. So that's a really good, for those who are listening who do not know Janis Joplin, please go look her up. but that's that, and there are some, but that is
Member of the 27 Club.
You're right. So, the element of Janis Joplin, Joni Mitchell, Carole King, these people were authentically themselves, and I have found that people in our world, Yeah, Lady Gaga is somebody I really have a great deal of respect for. But um, let's go back to that. Let's talk about the element of the beginning. John, talk about when somebody's coming into studio. What do you counsel anybody on their songwriting first before they even come into your studio to
Yeah, I would. Yeah, if they sent me a demo or something like that, then there'd be a discussion about, I mean, in the indie world, there's a lot of people that I'm going to this is going to sound brutal, but it's not my intention. But a lot of people write poems, and they come to you and they go, if you put music to it, now I'm a songwriter. Well, it doesn't always work that way. There's one thing that uh, people don't understand is there's still got to be a story attached to it. There's got to be some kind of element that's going to grab somebody. Like tense is one thing. Like you can't be in the first verse talking about walking in the rain and then the second verse talking about looking out your window. It's like, how did you get in the house? You know what I'm saying?
right?
So that kind of the transition. So there's an art to songwriting that I think that a lot of indie artists they find the rhyming words, and no, that doesn't always have to be. And so, yeah, I do counsel people when they come in the studio, be prepared. Don't come in the studio and start writing your song.
Yes.
That's not a good. That's not a good thing. Studio time is important and expensive. So, yeah. So definitely, and also, um,
Steve, at one point, after my first album, I had written, and you'll appreciate this, John, I had written Love Me Out Loud, and this was after acute panic disorder. And Steve, you may not remember this. This was outside of Hallandale Beach
Okay.
in Florida. And you said, so what's your message, Kat? The panic disorder and the anxiety disorder is really, really valuable. And you've written some songs about this. How about working around, use your pain, your fall apart, your face in the mud, and get out there and perform. Now, a lot of it, I was traumatized from the panic disorder, so I was having a real hard time performing again. But that became something really valuable to me that has come around again and again and again in my life of music. What is your message?
yes.
When you are writing your music, you can, I know a lot of songwriters who write in Nashville because they've been asked to write a certain thing. But I also know a lot of people who are going through whatever, but what is your message? And stay clear to it. Now, that's hard for a lot of artists. And guys, jump in.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I see a lot of the message is lost in the song when it's created, because like you just talked about, like panic or whatever. If you're going to talk about panic, okay, so the elements that I just wrote a song about the feelings of depression with somebody, and it's talking about how you feel like you're drowning, in the sea of depression. Well, I'm not going to use major chords and a BPM of 120, 140 or whatever and give it a dance track, because that's not how you feel when you're depressed, right? So you use minor chords and, you give it that element of move, like, this song's going to drive on a little bit, but it's getting the message across. So I think that's the creative part of songwriting. You've got to understand that there are certain elements of the music that come across to the words that give the message as well. So it's like, you don't want to do, the 1-4-5 major chord and sing about, losing a parent or something like that, because it'd be like, well, this is a bit of a jolly sad song,
That's a great way.
Do you know what I mean? The element. So it's like you've got to look at it that way too. You've got to look at the way it's put together.
And what you said earlier, the story that would, and I'll say it again. Tonight is because I've made a lot of mistakes, and I want to share. Some people have helped me through my mistakes, and one of them was that I would tell a story that was so very long-winded that Ned Albright, who's my songwriting partner, and even Tom Schaefer, who has written some songs with me, have said, Kat, where are you on the song? We're over here. Where your hook is here. Where did you go? And it takes somebody saying that to you. It took Leland Sklar and Herman and Dean Parks to say, hey, Kat, this is where this song is. This is where we hear it. I heard it somewhere else, but they were going with what you're saying, John, which and the artist's mind, I'm going to give them a big hug and a clap and love. But if you have people who know more than you telling you, hey, maybe think over here, don't be afraid to listen to that. Don't be afraid to go in that place. Don't be afraid to hone in on your skills. It doesn't make you wrong, and it certainly doesn't make what you're doing bad. It just means that there's maybe a little bit of a loophole that you can go right up here, maybe, just finesse it a little bit and open up your mind to being in that place.
It's like misunderstanding somebody's communication style, it'd be almost like somebody thinking that somebody was being sarcastic about somebody's death if they were using major chords trying to convey a sad song. It'd be like, somebody using sarcasm.
Right.
It's like, if you don't understand the sarcasm, then you're going to lose the person. So
exactly.
And let me add here too that sometimes, again, like I mentioned before, you can't see yourself from across the room. Sometimes your songwriting and your arrangement of the song, whether you don't have that those skills totally developed yet, sometimes that's where a producer will come in and be like an editor would be to an author. Comes in and helps you, gives you a different perspective, and basically helps you recraft and reshape what you have. You might not realize that in this instance, less is more, or more is needed here, be it an arrangement or actual, songwriting. I come from the area where producers are dominant, or were dominant in the writing. Not so much in the writing, but in the crafting process.
Yes.
The arrangement of it.
Come in with the song, and this is great, but you know what? I think the verse is too long. We're gonna go back to the chorus. We're gonna do this, and now that you've got a fresh perspective on it, now all of a sudden that your germ of an idea has now turned into something. Because I see this all the time. Guitar players, now I was a drummer on stage and in front of people, but I've played guitar and bass because I've been a songwriter forever. And not being a real guitar player, quote unquote, I don't overplay.
Right.
Guitar players want to get all of their, what we call, look at me licks.
Yep.
And the truth of it is that less is more.
Yes.
People, the hook or whatever it is, in a lot of ways, the more simple it is, the more straightforward it is, the more the fan is going to, the listener is going to remember it. So a lot of guys, I'm a huge singer-songwriter fan. I'd have to say Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen, those guys are the SHIT. Because their craft, they're not trying to impress everybody with their writing ability, with their prowess on their instrument or their vocal. Okay. And sometimes, especially with newer artists, it might take a producer or an added co-writer that's going to come in on a cut-in, on your publishing, to help you get across the finish line and make that song the best it can be.
Brevity is the soul of wit. That's what Shakespeare said. And that
it still stands
phrase,
through.
It always stuck with me, because if you can whittle something down from a lot of words, a lot of word salad, you bring it down to its essence. I think that's where those great lyrics come from, when people just nail it. Like some of the classic lines, the wit. It's wit, I think, in lyrics that really grabs people when you catch a little bit different side of things and can be a little clever. Like one of my favorite all-time lines was from Clouds in Your Coffee. You're so vain, you probably think this song is about you.
Yeah.
What an all-time great wit in that line. And it was obviously a hit. So I think
it was obviously true.
And nobody knows who this is about.
Nobody, but you can tell when somebody lived it.
And isn't that it really? And see, this is the thing I think some people are afraid of with social media or doing what we're doing right now, that it didn't happen at the Austin City Limits stages, or it didn't happen in some really famous venue. You didn't get invited to the Tonight Show. And so this venue maybe doesn't seem as valuable, but really what it shows people, it lets them get up and close to meet you and learn about you. You're basically doing your own interview when you perform on one of these little live streams like this. You're letting people see some of those little rough edges that maybe a string pops, or maybe you're off a little. Hold on a second, let me just bring that back in. And those little subtle things, I remember that was the most exciting part about any live album, is when the musicians on the live album, you go, no, you got to hear that one part because they do it a little different.
Yeah.
Public loved that. And so I think that the fear of doing some of this stuff, these live streams or being on camera, or, I think it's well worth it. I think it's well worth it.
It's showing your character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's the most important part.
And that it's a good thing that you're talking about that. Nowadays we have access to stars and, people that we admire in the industry. And there's nothing wrong reaching out to them. I'm not a kind of person to get starstruck outwardly. Inwardly, I do. But if I'm meeting somebody, I don't get starstruck because they don't want that. They don't want you to bow down to them. They want you to treat them like a human being. Otherwise, the communication level has got such a broad, void in the middle. So if you talk to somebody like they're your best friend, or a friend you just met, they're more than likely to strike up a friendship with you.
I was down in Miami, just shooting some boats and stuff down at the Miami Marina, and it's right there, right as you cross the final causeway getting into Miami Beach there. And so I was wandering around taking pictures of yachts and whatnot, and somebody wound up really going a little too fast through there, and it's a no wake zone, and you're kind of watching all these boats bounce around, and there was a few people standing around, and I just said, wow, that guy was really, really fast. And it's Rod Stewart standing there with his girlfriend, and I have my camera. This is that moment that any paparazzi is looking for. I just didn't think it was going to be cool. I'm just not paparazzi. I'm just not that guy, but there was that moment, do you respect another artist, or do you want to kind of, take advantage like that? And so I never got the shot. So.
I actually got, in September of last year, I got given backstage passes, all access passes to a group that I've grown up listening to. And like I said, I'm not going to drop any names, but I ended up getting to meet my idol. And I didn't think I'd get starstruck, but he walked past me and I just smiled at him. Everyone started laughing. So my wife says, "Do you want a picture with him?" I says, "You better ask him." Because I'm not just going to run up there and ask for a picture. But yeah, he obliged. But it was, like I said, it's like, I try not to be starstruck on the outside.
Yeah. Although,
you know what I said when I was in that moment? I said, "Oh, it's you." And he said back to me, he goes, "No, it's you." So I found that kind of humorous at the moment, But I was too.
You guys
just caught off guard, Yeah, it was hilarious. He
good.
probably doesn't remember me from Adam, but it was one of those moments,
So I often think a lot of independent artists, I don't often think, they often say to me, how can I make money? And I often think, guys, if you are 100% yourself, I can't guarantee you're going to make money, but I want you to walk, talk, act the same way. I want you to look at your package. What are you selling to your public? Who is your audience? Think about who your audience is. Think about how they see you. The only way they can see you, I'm trying to round this out because we're coming up on an hour. The only way they can see you is through people like Tom Schaefer, to visually see through audio and through photography and videography. It actually see what's coming at them. To hear through production, John and Steve, your awesome management and experience. This is how you see your full circle. And as performers, if you want to really be great at you My advice as a performer is be 100% you, be uncomfortable, fall apart, be a little crazy, don't apologize. It's okay to come undone. Make sure that when you are producing your music and putting it together, do not fall short on your finances to make sure that you have the best piece of music that you can, whether it's a single, an EP, or an album. And I think nowadays EPs and singles are more important, or most people are doing those. Make sure that the people around you, you love them and respond to them on social media. These are mistakes I have made in my past. Get out there and love the people around you, because if you love them, they're going to come back and love you. They're going to give you the type of respect, fellow artists. I don't know if there's anything I've missed, guys, and rounding it out. I know that indie artists are struggling right now, guys, and I would have to say that coming into 2020 has been challenging, but coming into 2021 in the future, this is a good time to groom yourself as a performer, as an artist. Steve and I were talking about this, the importance of really looking at the facets of who you are and how you can be the best version of you. Please, if I could give one piece of advice to everybody, don't try to be a star. Try to be you. And people will inevitably gravitate to you when you're 100% your own. We had somebody on the show yesterday, Tom, right? Tom may not have heard me, but we had somebody on this show on Music City Fitness, and he's 100% himself, and everybody gravitates to him, his energy. So as performers, be that. And John and Steve and Tom, if you want to add to that before we close out.
Well, I was going to just say, the one thing too is I have an opportunity to manage the website calendar for a local venue. And so they have a bunch of touring bands coming through all the time. And so it's on me to if they don't have their information already on file for them, then I got to go out and find it. So here I am on the venue's behalf, trying to help these bands promote their act that's going to come to the venue. And I can't tell you how many times somebody decided to name their band Nasty Habits or some common term, and you try to search and find these people. There is a local band here that's awesome. The guitar player by that name, by the way, is just an awesome band. But a lot of times people will name a band so common that you can't tell whether they're 10 miles up the road or 20 miles down the other way. And so there's things like that. Getting your website in order, making sure that there's a simple bio there for your band and for the major player, the front person, whether it's man or woman, whatever, that you have all that information readily available. I need to be able to find a press kit, a press page. Give me your press page. Where's your picture of the band? Whatever you got. And it's unbelievable because there's some very good bands that I've looked at their websites. I'm like, come on, guys, you're really making it hard on me. I'm in a hurry. I want to help you. Help me to help you. So good pictures, good photography, some finish up your, YouTube page, your Facebook page, get all that stuff tight. Get all that stuff tight so that when they go to the Facebook page, there's a link to the website. When they go to the website, there's a link to everything. To Instagram, all your social media links, get that stuff tight. Those are things you need to know as an indie artist, because if you're going to get gigs and you're going to get out there, well, maybe you're going to make, like Steve and John had said earlier, maybe it's not going to happen in person at a venue. It's going to happen online. So you got to have all that stuff available. It's got to be ready. It's got to be tight. Good recent photos.
Yes, very important. Don't over Photoshop your photos, guys. Please don't do that.
Just be yourself.
Photoshop if you want a little bit. Okay, we all do, but do not over Photoshop. And so we have so much more to share. We can't tonight because we're at our hour, but join us again, because I'm going to have the guys back. We're going to talk about EPKs, which are very, very important. We're going to talk about how to get a gig and the elements of how to get the shows. And so much more. There's so much more in grooming independent artists. Guys, I appreciate you coming in. Steve, John, Tom, thank you. Pleasure. I really love you guys to death. You guys have been part of my world for so long, and I'm grateful. And for the independent artists out there, guys, come back and listen to our next experience when we talk about the music industry, because we're going to get a little more in depth. I just don't want to go over the hour now. But here's the deal, guys. It's important that you don't sign anything or go in the different direction of trying to think somebody else is going to do it for you and signing your world away, or putting a lot of money behind a song that may not be finished yet. And that's okay. It's there, but it's not there yet. Please listen to the people who have been around the block a couple times. Please do, because I, in the beginning, didn't. And then when I did, I went, oh, thank you. It was a blessing. So I'm giving this to you. These guys have been a part of my life for a very long time, and I'm grateful. So we'll see you real soon. Thank you for joining Catspan tonight, and join us next time we're back. Be well, you guys.